Hello everyone, welcome to the show Driven by Doing. Today we have got one of my best friends and a great mentor for lots of students here in Memphis, Mr. Danny Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so Danny is currently working as a software engineer and at Frontdoor here in Memphis. So Danny, can you quickly give an introduction about what you're currently doing and how you are engaging lots of students via GDG Memphis?
Sure. So, as Venki said, I am a software engineer at a company called Frontdoor. We're the parent company of several companies. And essentially, what I do is daily I'm working on a website. I currently work on the sales funnel to make sure the time a customer comes onto the website to the point of purchase is a very smooth process for them. And it's been a very amazing job for the most part. I'm very, very happy where I am. And the opportunities that the company gives me for growth is kind of something that I'm really attracted to. But one of the things that I do besides software engineering is I'm the chapter founder and event organizer for a group called GDG Memphis, Google Developers Group Memphis. We're a group backed by Google developers. And that kind of gives us the resources and power to try and provide as many resources as possible to developers in Memphis. One of my biggest passions is trying to help facilitate the growth for developers in our area. And by partnering with GDG, it was an ability for me to have that for them. So we're giving them courses, we're providing a comfortable environment for them to come. We help them whenever they have problems in projects. And the biggest thing is we're providing an environment where we bring speakers that are qualified to speak on subjects that will help essentially make them smarter, give them extra tools so that way they can further their careers. And for a lot of junior developers, actually land their first jobs. So that's essentially what we do there. And it's a huge passion of mine, huge.
That is amazing, Danny, because as a student, I took advantage of a lot of webinars that you conducted on GDG Memphis, and it really helped me to sharpen my skills as well. And I really
That's
appreciate
amazing.
you from from the whole community for what you're doing for the entire developers here in Memphis.
I truly appreciate that. You have no idea how important that is to me personally. Like one thing I did last year, I helped almost 50 developers land their first jobs in tech. And that is what fuels me, that passion, and seeing how happy someone is from getting these resources and becoming better and being able to market themselves. That's something I could never ask for besides the way we're doing things now.
Wow, wow. So when I heard for the first time your story, I just felt so fascinated how you became a software developer. And I definitely wanted to share that story here with our audience as well. So going
Sure.
back to a few years when you were not a software engineer, and what is that first thing that made you to think about becoming a software engineer?
So originally, I started in retail, and I actually really loved my job in retail. And I started out at very low as a cashier, and I worked my way up through a lot of hard work and persistence. And one day, I just kind of looked at myself and I said, I am in a field where I'm easily replaceable, and it's all of my work is easily replicable. And I'm technically at the bottom, and the bottom is always the most crowded place you can ever be. So either I can wake up and get out from the bottom and get to an area that it's not overcrowded where I can shine and be unique, or I need to just come to terms now that I'm going to be in the bottom forever and I'm going to be in retail forever. So right now is my fork in the road. If I go left, I'm sticking with retail. If I go right, I can go on to new things. And after 11 years in the retail industry, I realized, okay, it's time for better and brighter things. But one of my delays was I got so much joy out of getting other people jobs that I delayed my own self over a year before accepting a position. I turned down several jobs and would send other people to it just because I wasn't content with the offers yet. And one thing about Front Door, they really came not with just an amazing position, but everything around it. Every job that I was offered before, I turned it down because I have a vision in my head of what it's supposed to look like. And everything before this just wasn't acceptable. It wasn't what I wanted. I kept passing it up. And I would literally go for an interview And I would say, hey, this isn't for me. And I would send several people after me and they'd get the jobs. So when Frontdoor came, even my first interview, I wasn't sure they wanted me. And I was sending other applicants. I said, okay, go interview, go interview, go interview. And it wasn't until they said, no, we want to talk to you, did I realize, okay, there's something that can possibly happen here.
Wow. So what are the things that you typically tell to your students who are approaching you who don't have any technical background or who is just getting started to become a software engineer? What are the things that they need to keep in mind? Because one of the problems that I see is somebody who don't have a technical background might be really afraid to get into this software engineering roles, or for some people it can be a dream that is so far away because of lack of mentorship. You see what I'm saying? So what are some of the things that, or the resources that people who are interested to learn more about software engineering, or it's their dream to become a software engineer but don't really know how to get started? So what are some of the simple steps that they can do to learn more or learn about people who are going to help them?
So there's a lot of questions there, and we're going to work back a little bit.
Yeah.
So the very first thing I would say is I got my start in coding with freecodecamp.org. I preach this, I preach this, I preach this. You cannot find a better resource, in my opinion, to start that will literally handhold you and guide you through the beginning processes, and it's completely free with no cost to you. You can start with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and keep going. And as you grow, you'll find more and more resources to learn more things. Because Free Code Camp, they're not teaching Java. I learned Java. And so you're going to go through the steps. But I truly think HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is a great foundation for any developer nowadays. And I even call it the high school equivalent of programming. To be a developer at any stage, you need to know the three basics: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I don't care how you cut it. So what better place can you start besides right there, where they'll literally make a roadmap for you to follow that is proven to work? So I'm a huge believer that if you don't like Free Code Camp, there's Audacity, there's Pluralsight where you can get a free month, things like that. But I can't recommend Free Code Camp enough. For that, you came with a very good point. You said, if they don't know how to keep going, where's their motivation to keep going? And for that, I always say it's very hard in the beginning to reach something that you don't know is there. But what you need to do is just don't stop. I got exactly where I am because I don't stop. And I don't mean don't stop as in 24 hours a day. I mean, as long as you keep going and progressing towards your goal, regardless of how slow it is, the possibility and the existence of your goal is still there. The only guarantee I have if you stop is that it's impossible to reach your goal because you've stopped. But even if you move at the pace of a turtle, you still have that dream alive. So just don't stop and progress however you need to progress, and you will reach that goal eventually. And one point with that is a friend of mine, it took him 6 years to become a software engineer. It took me a little under a year to do the same thing. But the interesting thing about that is both of our titles are software engineers. He doesn't have a title that says, took 6 years to become an engineer. He just says software engineer. Mine says software engineer. Pretty confident our paychecks are the same. So it doesn't matter how long it takes you to progress down that road. Just progress. It genuinely doesn't matter. There's no dates on any of this. Even if you get a degree, it doesn't even matter if you went through a boot camp, a degree, you're self-taught. I don't have a degree. I'll be the first one to tell you that. So none of that matters because it doesn't say on my thing, oh, no degree software engineer. It just says software engineer. So keep that motivation in yourself to say, I'm trusting this process. I know at the end of this process, there's tangible fruit for me to have. The only thing I need to do is get there, and then I can pick it off the tree myself. Simple as that. Trust that process. And there's a whole world of resources now. And you can literally go on Twitter and message a developer saying, am I going the right path? Everyone's going to have a different opinion, But the one thing that matters is if the consensus is you're not doing the wrong thing, then you're on the right path.
You have a great insight that you just told to the audience here, just don't stop, irrespective of whether you wanted to become a software engineer or any field that you wanted to pursue in your career. I think not stopping and just ultimately trying everything possible under the sun to really get help from people who have already achieved it, or take advantage of plenty of resources that we have all around the internet. I think we are in a great digital world that we have all the resources that we need. The only thing I feel sometimes is missing is the lack of guidance or the lack of motivation. So what keeps you motivated to become a software engineer? Like, what keeps you motivated and you are truly driven by doing? What makes you do that?
So one thing I say this, I've probably said this 1,000 times. I'm not motivated. I'm driven. And the reason why I say that is motivation is an emotion that comes and goes as fast as the wind changes direction. Being driven means I have a goal and there's absolutely nothing in this universe that will stop me from getting to that goal. I believe Tony Robbins said this, that I'm driven by the idea of a decision comes from the Latin definition of incision, which means to cut off any other possibility, which to me is true. So when I make a decision, once I say I'm doing X, Y, Z, that's it. It's done at that point. I'm just waiting for everyone else to realize I've accomplished this. At the moment I decide that I'm doing this, it's done. And I just need everything else to follow suit. So if I say I'm going to, and another thing is I truly believe in if you cap yourself, you will reach that cap but never exceed it. So if you say I'm going to be a junior developer, you will absolutely be a junior developer, but you will never be a senior developer. You'll never be a valuable developer. You'll never be a top earning developer. For me, my goal was never to be an entry-level developer or junior developer. I said, I'm going to be the most valuable developer in the company that I can be. And obviously, in order to reach that position, of course, junior and entry is coming. Of course, my first position is coming. Those are the stepping stones to that position. So many people cap themselves that they reach that cap and that motivation dies. I'm more motivated and driven than ever right now to do what I'm doing, to where I'll sacrifice some time to make sure I'm working on my craft to become better. Whereas some people get that first position and they're like, oh, that's it. Easy time now. No more studying, no more algorithms, no more working on my craft. And then once they lose their position because they're not producing, they can't believe and they're shocked. It's not a good position to finally reach your goal of being a junior developer, and then you stop working on it, and then you're like, oh, you're not even worth being a junior developer anymore. You're so far behind the times.
Wow, that is just amazing. What you just told, it's just it's just motivated me so much, and drove me to do
That's awesome.
everything and to become a better version of myself. And that's what I wanted to share with everybody who is listening to the podcast. And we can achieve ultimately anything that we wanted in our career. It's just that having that goal, and along with that having that never stop attitude, is what is going to help us get there. So
Absolutely.
we have seen a lot of people without having any resources and doing and achieving great things in their life. And you are onto that path as well. You are just driven by doing, and everything that you're doing is with passion and the drive, what you're doing. So from what I heard so far is you have come this far. And what are your next steps or next goals in your life? And since you already become a software engineer, where do you want to go next from here? And what's your biggest dream that you wanted to achieve?
So this is a very interesting question. My whole life, I had always wanted to become the best in business. And when I decided to pivot, and I've always been the type that when I set a goal, I hit it. And I realized I've always had that ability to essentially project and create the vision of what I'm trying to achieve. And to go back a little bit, when I first started doing tech and learning how to code, I was literally waking up every day at 2:30 in the morning to study before I went to work every day because I didn't have the option to study afterwards. So I would literally study 2:30 in the morning to about 4:30 in the morning, go to work, come back home, spend time with my family, study a little bit more, and recycle the day. And I kept going to these meetups, and I kept asking people, how do you get that first job? And everyone said the same thing. Oh, the first job is the hardest job, man. The first job is the hardest job. You get that, everything else after that comes easy. But just find that first one. That was the most demotivating thing I would hear over and over again. You're telling someone, assume it's not me for a moment, you're telling someone who's on this path to learn tech, and of course they're navigating and it's scary and daunting, and you're telling them, oh, this is the hardest thing you're going to do to get that first job. You give no advice, no hope. There's no way for them to figure this out. Because of that, that is actually why I started getting involved with meetups. I realized very quickly, especially in tech, many people are introverted. So I said, I'll be the extrovert for the introvert. I'll be the megaphone for these people that are a little nervous and afraid to talk to these people. And what I realized is I have this ability to create this network of hiring managers and recruiters and all these amazing people. And I'm able to help talent find a way to match themselves. Now, I don't get paid for this. I actually don't want to involve money in it because I'm afraid if I take money, my intentions will change. So I leave the money out of it and I'm just doing it out of the goodness of my heart. But that's when I realized very quickly that we should stop saying the first job is the hardest thing and not giving any valuable advice and focus on creating a path or an ability for people to find that first job. Even if it's not even finding them the first job, it's opening the doors to these introductions that eventually a hiring manager may recommend them to someone else, because developers know other developers. Well, hiring managers know other hiring managers. So even if you meet one, you never know where that one first conversation will take you. So that kind of spawned on everything that I was doing as far as trying to create these opportunities and trying to learn how to code, and that drive. And when I saw people get so excited about that first opportunity where they may have not gotten a job, but they finally got to talk to someone and see the possibility of the fruition of their dream, that will change your perception of whatever you're doing. If you realize there's an actual tangible end goal to reach, you're going to stay on that path to reach that end goal. I'm realizing now I may have not remembered the original question because I went backwards for a second.
That's okay. Yeah, so I think you mentioned great points here as well. And one of the key things that I personally myself have felt for the last few years is how much networking in these meetups can really, really help you in your career. Not a lot of people actually realize that once they get a job, that they feel that it is done and dusted. But however, even working as a professional, going to these meetups and meeting new people from professionals who are working in different companies is actually going to help you to learn even more or sharpen your skills, because everything that you're doing on a daily basis might be so small when compared to all the other different things that other people are doing, just across the technology that you're in. So what are some of the tips for for some people might be even introverts, as you mentioned? So what are some of the tips for anyone who is just getting started, didn't really go to lots of these meetups? So where can they get started? Like how to approach people in these meetups and ask for help or so on?
So you're asking me how can they ask for help and be more comfortable at a meetup? I remember the last question now, which was the point I wanted to hit first of. You asked me what were my goals with trying to do these meetups. And for me, the ultimate goal has changed from when I was in business, where I don't want to be the best in business anymore. What's changed for me is I've realized how much potential Memphis and other cities like this have. So for me, the meetup is not the goal anymore. It's the tool. The meetup originally was the goal to create a great community, which I have. But I've realized using the meetup as a tool, I can infect positive change into the city.
Hmm.
We have two particular areas, Orange Mountain and Fraser, that are very low income areas. Orange Mountain in particular, the average household income is only $18,000 a year. If we can make someone a developer, and let's say they're making $100,000 a year, that person now is generating the income of 5.5 households. If I can get 20 people from the same area into the same job, I've just changed the neighborhood. I've just put these people in a new tax bracket. So now they're paying more in taxes. Now, because of that, these schools are now getting more resources than ever to help these kids in schools. Now, when we have these successful families, their children are getting the trickle-down effect of this. So just by putting someone in a better position, we've changed the social income and the outcome of what that child will grow up in. And one of my biggest passions, honestly, is getting more women in tech. Now you can say there's like data to show that, they have a harder time getting into tech, which is cool. But for me, one of my biggest passions for women in tech is 84% of single parents are women. These women obviously have children. If we can change the life of that mother, it's trickling down to her kids as well. Now we're deterring gang activity. Now we're deterring drug use. We're deterring all these things just by helping this parent get a better position besides being a restaurant worker, besides being a bus driver. And there's nothing wrong with those jobs if you keep them. But I'm just saying the grass is greener, and we do use fertilizer on this grass, and it's growing great. And you can be a part of this. Now, back to the original question here, how can they be more comfortable in meetups? One thing that I've realized, and I've told this to people time and time again, everyone is coming to a meetup with the same intention, that they want to talk to other people. And it may be scary to talk to someone you don't know. It may be intimidating to talk to these high-level developers that are coming to these meetups. It may be, but just know that they're there ready to have a conversation. They've come with the intention of opening their mouth and letting words come out. And it's on you to open your mouth and let words come out as well. So one thing that I avidly do at our meetups, because I know it can be scary, I try very hard to talk to everyone that comes in there. It was much easier when our meetups were only 10 or 15 people. It's a little challenging since we've been hitting the triple digits and doing 150 and 175 people in a very short time span. But I genuinely do try to talk to everyone. And one thing that I'll do is like, oh, you're into SQL? Well, so-and-so is also into SQL. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. And I'll make that quick introduction to ease that way into a conversation. Or, oh, you're learning JavaScript? Well, James over here is a React genius. Let me introduce you guys. That will break down that barrier for that person. And what I also realize is if you make a friend at a meetup, that is a meetup you're returning to. You now feel comfortable in that space and you can absorb all the resources and knowledge we're giving out. Because we don't make anything off of meetups. In fact, it's a headache if you really think about it. But what you're gaining out of this is so much more valuable to me personally that I'll forego the income that we could be making off of this just so you can grow. And I know we're growing the talent in the city because I truly believe Memphis can be a tech hub and I want to try and facilitate that growth any way I can.
Wow, I'm all in it for it. Like you say, like when I heard you talking about the communities and how this can really literally change everybody's lives and how it would have a domino effect, if I would say, like helping just changing one life in a family. If they can become a software engineer who are from poorest of poorest backgrounds, I think that has literally having a domino effect for the entire family and for the entire community that they are living in. So,
well, I'll tell you like this. I actually just gave a speech at a prison. I was talking to prisoners that are learning how to code. Amazing group of people. I mean, and I love that because it's the situation of not giving a man a fish, but teaching a man how to fish. Because if it comes to it and they come out of prison and can't land a job, they can freelance. They can do things besides the basics. And they have studies that prove that prisoners that learn how to code in prison will not revisit a prison again. So now we have that chance to deter their return. But when I was talking to them, I said, even if you don't become an engineer, even if you don't, that's okay. You've learned a brand new way to address problems. One thing that I think is very unique about developers, very unique about engineers in our field, is we look at problems in a completely different way than any other field. Our job is we don't make a website. We make a header. We make a navigation bar. We make the first paragraph. We make a hero image. We have to break it down into such small, little, minute tasks that once we finish our tasks, we've got the solution to the problem. But we break it down into bite-sized chunks. So even if you go into construction and your job is, hey, I need to tear down that wall, instead of taking the sledgehammer to a wall and just start breaking holes into it, you're now thinking, well, if I hit it in this corner is a load-bearing portion. It makes my job so much easier to tear down the rest of the wall. You've learned problem-solving skills that are applicable to any industry, and it's just because you started in understanding how code works. That is why I preach learn how to code. I preach teach this in schools, because you're learning a skill set that is more applicable to anything in life besides just coding.
Wow, that is amazing, Danny. Like every time I hear, you answering these questions, it just feels like I just feel so amazing. Just we have somebody like you in our community helping lots of people, not just become software developers, but also helping these people like prisoners to really help them and give them a new life once they're out of the prison. I think it's a great way to help them, as you clearly mentioned, that they can become freelancers, irrespective of whether somebody is giving them another chance or not. Once they come out of where they are from, and just imagining that if they can become software engineers, that would open up a whole world to them. And that would make a lot of impact to their families and their neighborhoods especially. And we have got a lot of great things to do here in Memphis, and especially like last few years, amazing things are happening here in Memphis, whether it is the technology, whether it is startups, and we have got the great community who are helping each other and supporting each other to build that new age of companies for the next several years to come. And I truly believe in that. And I know you are helping lots of startups, lots of people to get into software engineering, and also people who might not even think that they can become a software engineer. The way you motivate them, I have seen so many times on LinkedIn and from your posts, how you engage your audience and really motivate all of them to become what they wanted to achieve in their life. So do you have anything else to add on top of everything that you told us today to really help our audience?
One day I'm going to write a speech. I come up with so much off the top of my head that I don't remember it afterwards. And I've said some things here that I really wish I could remember.
Yeah, so that's why we are today recording another podcast so that
yeah, I'm going to listen to this again because I've said some stuff that was like, man, this is really good. But one thing I would say, and I actually said this to the prisoners, I've said this to many junior developers, I think a certain change, if you're trying to get a job in tech, you need to change one thing in your mindset. So many junior developers say, I wish I could just get a chance. I just want a chance. I need a company to give me a chance. I say that's the wrong thing to say. I think you need to be so damn valuable that they need to have you on their team. They need to have you, and they need to come after you, saying, I can't operate without them. They bring so much value. Because one thing you need to understand in tech, you are absolutely valuable. You're doing something that millions are trying to do and can't. You are so valuable, and that's the reason why they pay so much for some of these positions. Understand you are valuable, but go into there saying, I'm going to bring value. Don't go in there saying, well, I know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, where the paycheck at. No. You need to increase your skill set and become valuable enough that these companies are so interested in you that they have to come. Because some people say, when I tell them I turned down 6 jobs before I took my job with Frontdoor, they're like, what? I can't even get one. I said, but your mindset is, I'm begging for this. I need this. And you go into the interview with the same idea. I need this, please, please, please. Instead of going into the interview saying, I'm going to bring value. I'm not going to stop until I produce what I need to produce for you to be happy. I don't know everything, but if you give me enough time to research something, I will absolutely bring an answer to you that is bringing value to whatever task you're giving me. That is how you change that from I wish I had a job to I have a job and I'm getting paid. I have a salary. So that would be the last thing I add. Change your mindset and trust the process that you're in, but understand you bring so much value and you are phenomenal beyond measure that you need to realize that so other people can realize it. Because if I'm interviewing you and you don't love you, why do I need to love you? If you don't believe in you, why do I need to believe in you? And if you're willing to discount yourself saying, I'm an entry-level developer instead of a developer, don't get mad when I undervalue you as well. Because if you started the undervaluing, I will follow right behind you.
Wow, this is just amazing, Danny. Thanks for everything that you're doing, and thanks for sharing lots of these great insights, because a lot of people need a lot of mentors like you. Because I felt after hearing your story and everything in this podcast that I wish I had somebody like you telling me all this years ago. Years ago, I would have been somewhere else, right? So thank you
Right.
so much for everything that you're doing, and I wish you all the very best. And if anybody who's listening to this podcast, if they wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Danny Thompson. Common spelling, DANNYTHOMPSON. I am on Twitter at DThompsonDev. And if you're in my area, I'm on eHarmony. No, I'm just kidding. My wife will kill me for that. no. But, you can reach out to me any way possible. And if there's some way or another that I can help you out, I absolutely will. Whether it's giving you advice, whether it's making an introduction. If there's something I can do for you, do not hesitate in asking, and I will try my hardest to help you out.
Wow, thank you, Danny. This is one of my best podcasts so far, and really appreciate you taking the time for joining us and sharing lots of great tips and all the resources that helped you. And thank you so much, and wish you all the luck and all the success for all the things that you're doing right now and in the future. And thanks for coming on to the show and giving your time today. Thank you so much. Thanks, listeners, for joining us today. And until next time, thank you. See you.
Thank you.